Charlene Downs disappeared near Blackpool's North Shore in November 2003.
Well, this has been one of Lancashire's longest-running murder investigations.
What do you think did happen?
I don't know. I live in hope that she's still alive.
These two men, Mohammed Raveshi and Ayad Al-Batiki, were heard making sick jokes about chopping up her body and putting it into a kebab. Their conversations were bugged using secret microphones.
There was no doubt in my mind that we had the right two people.
But he says he's seen 6 black bags. He knew that girl was in them bags.
The men were guilty, and we had the evidence to bring the killers to justice.
I know nothing about Charlene Downs.
An astonishing catalogue of incompetence, manipulation and lies.
These men have been falsely accused of the gravest of crimes.
Police think the murder happened here.
The English Defence League, the BNP, they were supporting us.
It elevated her story to a national and an international story.
This is not black and white.
I don't think anyone really wanted to talk about what was actually happening in Blackpool at the time.
There is more to this story than anybody can imagine.
Hello? Hi, it's Blackpool Police here. We just received a 999 call on your phone. Is there a problem? So my daughter's been missing since Saturday night. They thought she'd been back by now, but she hasn't returned. How old is she? 14. She came down to see me at work. And she said, oh, I'll see you later, Mum. She went off for the phone and I've not seen her since. Can you give me a description, please? She's got shoulder-length, dark brown hair. Yeah, with a fringe. She's got a fringe as well. What was she wearing? She had a black jumper on with, like, white diamonds on the jumper. What's she called? Charlene. Charlene Downs.
Charlene was wearing my clothes. Very mysterious, very cheeky. Nice Charlene was, very cheeky. It was a very cold night as well, just like tonight. Freezing. Our plans were just like any other teenagers, basically, just going to the arcades, McDonald's, and going to see my mum.
She went out with Becky down the arcades. I gave them their pocket money, £5 each. Doesn't sound much, but it was enough. I said, all right, my darling, don't be late home. She said, I won't be late home, Mum.
The night Charlene went missing, we was in Mr T's, and she came walking in with 2 other people. I think one was a sister, and we were just in a brief conversation of where you're going tonight, and I think they were off to meet someone.
Me and Charlene walked up here. We're coming up. We've got milkshakes in our hand, laughing and joking. Made a phone call over that telephone box over there. And then that's the last time I seen her.
What did she tell you she was going?
Said she was just meeting up with some friends. That was it.
She didn't tell you anything about what was going on?
I don't know who she went with.
But you know that.
I still don't know who she went with. Or who she met up with or anything else. No more comment.
No, but...
No.
We were having a lot of issues getting the girls, getting her friends to talk, and then when they did talk, there was a lot of conflicting accounts.
I bumped into her in town, at the town hall. We stayed in town for a bit, walking around. And then we went on the carousel bar. Got talking to a few people and had a few drinks. And then I lost her. Lost sight of her and then never seen her again.
The police were told that she was last seen in the carousel bar, but she wasn't. Nobody wanted to talk about the night Charlene went missing because I don't think anyone really wanted to talk about what was actually happening in Blackpool at the time. A lot of kids would be scared to say what was really going on because they didn't want to get in trouble. So they covered it up at the time and didn't realise how serious it actually was.
Charlene Downs was one of the last cases I ever did, certainly the biggest, and it's the only one that got away. The police faced a wall of lies from the start. I mean, there was all sorts of other leads that we were given which turned out to be baseless. There was all sorts of other so-called sightings of Charlene alive and well after the day she was last seen. But with so many misleading pieces of information being poured in, it became very, very difficult indeed to see the wood for the trees. Most of this information was coming from girls of Charlene's age, so maybe they were a little reluctant to confess the truth. Maybe some girls thought it better to tell a white lie, a bit of a tale, to protect their own reputations. This was one of the most challenging investigations that I ever had any involvement with. You start off with what should have been a fairly simple girl in her early teens going missing from home. There were so many lines of inquiry that was totally unexpected, and it added complexity upon complexity.
It was clear from quite early on there was a lot of misinformation around the police. It got to the point where the investigation was going nowhere. But then stepped forward David Cassidy. Cassidy was a small-time local white businessman who knew pretty much everybody in that area, and he had some compelling evidence that made the police sit up and listen to him.
Mr. Cassidy explained fully what he'd heard regarding the death of Charlene Downs. Mr. Cassidy was a good, reliable and believable witness.
Tarek gave me the full story of everything what happened to Charlene Downs. Tarek said to me that he knew something that would get my brother sent away.
He came forward with some shocking information about two kebab shop owners, Albert Tiki and Raveshi, and what they'd done to Charlene.
I am going now to take you to my room where, I'll keep some of my documents about the Charlene Downs case. There are many, many boxes. Almost everyone in Blackpool thinks that I've been involved with Charlene Downs murder. Police, they don't believe me either. But as far as I'm concerned, I've never come across her, I do not know her, I will not recognize her, and I've never seen her in my life. The only time that I know about her, when I see the picture of her and things like that. I don't see any reason why I should come to under suspicion for this Charlene Downs murder.
You have to believe coincidence after coincidence to give Raveshi any credibility whatsoever. I think he's a dangerous man, and he's extremely clever and extremely manipulative and extremely wealthy now.
You look worried. Believe you me, don't worry. There's nothing they can find.
David Cassidy was a local businessman who knew most of the people running businesses in the fast food industry in Blackpool. He moved from one takeaway shop to the next with his slot machine business. He told the police with some quite shocking information that he'd come across about 2 Asian takeaway bosses.
To say this was the first time we had a significant lead on what had actually happened to Charlene is an understatement. This was dynamite to the investigation. Cassidy named 2 people, Eddie Albatiki, better known as perhaps to his friends as Iyad, and Mohammed Raveshi, who uses the street name Rez.
I knew Raveshi. I'd heard rumours. Young girls getting in his van and not seen till the next day. Tarek said he came in from work one night and Raveshi was in bed with 3 young girls. One was 12 at the time and 2 of her friends, and one apparently was Charlene Downs. I was told that Charlene, apparently she'd had enough and she was going to the police. And apparently that's what triggered something off in their heads. You know, that wasn't going to happen. She ended up in Eddie's room when he was strangling her. Raveshi, I think, just helped dispose of the body. But he says he's seen 6 black bags. He knew that girl was in them bags.
This was the first time anyone had confirmed, even by inference, that she had been killed, and more importantly, who'd killed her. He now had 2 major suspects with credible evidence to progress the investigation into those 2 alone.
Being in the takeaway business and knowing other owners, and the only predator that I'm aware of in this is Eddie Albatiki. Eddie was brash, arrogant, driving around town in blacked out BMs, looking for young girls, asking them where they're going, do they want to go to parties, do you want to buy cocaine? I've seen the temper, I've seen it for myself, where he switches. He's confronted me a few times. I'm going to kill you. The guy is like a time bomb. Raveshi, they were sort of partners. They were that close. I believe Raveshi would have helped him, give him an alibi, or helped him dispose of the body. I mean, the rumours are that she was chopped up and put in kebabs. That's just what I heard.
The stories that went round Blackpool were pretty horrendous.
There's a few stories. Well, there was 2.
One of the guys snapped one night, snapped her neck or whatever, chopped her up, put her in a blender, put her in a kebab, served them to the customers.
A man got ill from a kebab and it was tested and they found human remains. There was the one where they thought she had been killed and put into the walls, because apparently there was a new wall what was built in there.
That's what I think. That's what I've been told and what I'm led to believe, so.
Can you tell me how many kebab shops you had in 2003?
2003, I had Arfan Spices in St. Anne's, and I had Funny Boys, you know, on Dixon Road, and I had investment with him. That is how I know Albatiki.
And did you know anything about Charlene Downs going to kebab shops or hanging around kebab shops?
I did not have any clue about anything. I don't have any clue about what they're talking about. I don't care where she is, whoever done anything, whether she's alive or dead or whatever. I couldn't give a toss, to be honest, about this.
I remember being around the kebab shops a lot. I've seen Charlene there a lot of times. I've seen her behind the counter a lot of times as well.
Charlene, she used to go into like these takeaways and she'd get her some chips and that. I would sit in the front and she would go round to her back and she'd be about 10, 20 minutes. And she'd come back out with some money and we'll just go around the arcades like nothing had happened and stuff like that. I didn't think nothing of it at the time.
She used to be dead caring and between 12 and 13. She changed. Her eyes changed. It was weird. It was just like she was just gone. So it's like she was just making it all try and go away.
What did you find out that Charlene was involved in?
Charlene was exposed to a network of Asian males that were actively involved in grooming.
A lot of the things that happen centred around a very dark alleyway off Abingdon Street in Blackpool town centre.
I'm not going in it, sorry, but I've never been in. I can't. No. I'm not a racist in any shape or form, but because of the takeaway that link off to the alleyway, they branded this as Packy Alley. I didn't ever see what was going on. I mean, with my own eyes, I did never witness it. If I had witnessed it, I would have put a stop to it there and then. It knocks me sick, physically sick.
The alleyway backed on to a row of kebab shops. There's a lot of delivery drivers coming and going through that alleyway.
There used to be a little tiny kitchen window. The window used to be open and she'd shout for him. I was never allowed in the shop. They used to tell me to get out. I had to wait outside. And so obviously, I knew they were getting fags and alcohol. I knew that because he used to come out with them, but I don't know what went on inside. These are fully grown men in the 30s, 40s. I used to tell her, this is bad, this isn't right. You're 13.
Very naive. She wasn't very streetwise, which would make her more vulnerable to people who would want to abuse her.
And you seen this?
Yeah, I seen this and I was part of it. Yeah, I did, yeah.
So you felt like you were groomed?
I was groomed, yeah, I was groomed. I was groomed, but I wasn't groomed to the point where I was taken advantage of. So I'd get my burger and I'd give them a kiss on the cheek or something, or I'd get my burger and wind them up a bit and then fuck off. Yeah, it used to happen quite a lot.
Quite shocking.
Well, it's shocking to you, isn't it? It's not shocking to me and other people who went through that because it was the norm. We didn't know any different.
We discovered what we considered to be an epidemic of sexual abuse of children. The age of these girls was 14 to 15. The girls were far too young in law and were being taken advantage of by adults. And from the evidence that was gleaned, these men were predominantly from Asian restaurants. The infamous address where Albertiki owns. I still think he owns it, I'm not sure, but that's where he was working. Funny boys. I'll take you around some of the other people who frequented or were believed to frequent Packy Alley. One of them lived there. He admitted that Charlene had performed sexual favours for him. This shop here was owned by an Asian. The girls used to frequent there and allow him, the proprietor there, to fondle them whilst they stole from him, their words, not mine. Very shortly we'll be coming to a takeaway premises at the next junction that was owned by another Asian. He was a very good friend of Iyad Albertiki, very good friend indeed, and there was considerable evidence that Charlene and other girls were going to this place, this takeaway, where this chap and his associates were sexually using schoolgirls for their own gratification. Raveshi owned that first floor apartment up there, and that was where Charlene was quite possibly disposed of with catering machines up there.
Charlene was my baby girl. She used to love the illuminations. She loved to switch on, as that was her favourite time. She loved the switch on of the illuminations. Though she'd be 29 years old now, I still think of her. I still see 14-year-old girls and think it's her. I've often walked around, and saw them young girls, looked into their faces and thought it was Charlene, and I've shouted, "Charlene, Charlene," they've looked round and it's not been them. I miss her terribly. I think I just miss everything about her. I just wish I could have her back. Well, from what I found out afterwards, Charlene was hanging around takeaways and going around to see these Asian grooming men, but I didn't know anything about that at the time. I absolutely no idea. As far as I knew, she was with her friends that night and she was coming back that night. I had no idea of the darker side and what they'd been up to previous. No idea at all.
Based on what Cassidy had said, he'd been told, allowed Lancashire Police to seek approval to put covert surveillance into Raveshi's house and vehicle. Both he and Albertiki were brought in for questioning.
They were detained informally for some hours whilst the covert team went into that house and that car to install secret microphones.
He never been in trouble with the police. All of us are nice. All of us, we haven't done nothing.
Would you consider yourself to be a good friend of ours?
He's a good dad.
He's a good friend of yours?
Yeah, he's a good friend, yeah. I wouldn't say he's a bad person.
You don't think he's a bad person?
No, not his fault. I mean, there is nothing to hide, all of us. There's absolutely nothing.
Both of them denied any knowledge of having any contact or of ever knowing Charlene Downs. The recordings started from the moment Raveshi returned back to his home address on Hornby Road. No idea that there were devices in his home and in the car that then started recording all the conversation.
Somebody's powerful, but somebody who is addicted. You are powerful, I am powerful, but I have power.
For the next 4 weeks, those microphones were active 24/7, so that we could record everything they might say about Charlene Downs.
Lord, touch your door, I mean, I touch your door, I mean,
Mohammed Raveshi, he and I have an unusual relationship. In 1988, he turned up from London and bought the house next door but one. It was all right. He wanted to be my friend, he said so, and I had no issue with that particularly.
Initially, when I came to Blackpool, I moved to this road, and the house itself is that one there. And my best friend, Don Fraser, who is a police officer, live here. Yes, my best friend and worst enemy.
Doesn't it feel weird being back here, Ed?
It is actually. I don't even feel like walking around here because of Mr. Fraser.
I got on pretty well with Mr. Raveshi until a major problem occurred, which really caused me alarm. He'd had 2 9-year-old girls in his back bedroom on the ground floor of his house, and they'd been shown or they'd watched soft pornography. He admitted that to the police officer who attended to investigate. He said it had been an accident. They'd put the machine on whilst he'd been in the loo. He came to see me at my house. It had been a complete mistake, and I just didn't believe that, because I told him I was appalled.
Come on, man. Come on. You go there, we go in this song so that you can do it better. Come on, go over there. Come here. Yes.
Reveshi, shortly after the episode where films were played to the children in his own lounge, I do know that he applied to the local authority in Blackpool to become a foster parent to delinquent juveniles.
He's not focusing.
I could not believe that.
I saw ad in the paper, if you have extra room, if you want to provide supportive lodging for the teenagers. I didn't see no harm in it. I had the spare room and I thought I would be helpful. And at the same time, if there is financial gain, it would be financial gain as well. They approved me as a special foster parent to foster a young girl, because this girl, she was very difficult from their point of view and she wouldn't settle anywhere. And then they brought her to me and she wanted to stay.
Dance, turn your music up, Rez, or something.
He's become a sort of quasi-father figure, and that's putting it politely, because he had any number of girls going to his house, the schoolgirls, without their parents knowing, in his house, in his car, giving them money and giving them whatever for reasons which were, to say the least, suspicious.
Go on, Rez.
It's bizarre that a single man without a family is fostering vulnerable children. This man likes having young people around him. He likes being a benefactor.
Whether it's suspicious or whether there is a motive or whatever, it is for other people to say. From their point of view, if you're a single man, you have young boys or girls in your care, you have to be sleeping with them.
Were you sleeping with them?
I don't even sit next to them, let alone to sleep with them. I don't even, if they're sitting, I mean, if you are sofa, I sit there, they sit there.
Oh yeah, he's nice legs, I know. You have so beautiful legs.
Come on.
Come on, say how much you love me then, come on.
I love you, Rez.
Oh, thank you very much.
Reveshi, he was a wealthy man. He owned quite a few properties. He had strong associations with a lot of young white females. He had the money to spend on them and he was able to befriend them.
What we did find in the investigation was several girls came forward saying how uneasy they'd felt, uneasy at least, when he was in their company. You've got to bear in mind that Reveshi was given court orders restraining him from any contact with young girls because of the alarm he was causing to the girls and their parents.
So I lived in a children's home round the corner from Afron Spices, and I used to go in there occasionally with my friends, getting chips or whatever, and he used to approach me asking me if I wanted a job there all the time. And one day I took him up on the offer.
How old were you?
I was 14 and just thought it's a bit of extra spending money. When I actually got behind the counter, that's when he was very touchy-feely. He was sleazy. Oh, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, and stuff like this. Like cuddling me and touching my neck and like touched my bum and touched my legs. And then Reveshi give me a flat, which was creepy at times, as he used to let himself into my flat. He barred my mum and dad from the flat. And he used to be all dead flirtatious and touchy-feely then, like sitting next to me if my boyfriend wasn't there and touching my legs and stuff. He's a very scary man and very convincing man as well. After I found out what happened to Charlene, and when I found out it actually, Rez Raveshi was involved in it, I thought that could have been me.
Raveshi was a groomer, there's no doubt about it. He appeared to have very, very few friends of his own age or his own sex. It was mainly young girls. Albertiki was sexually motivated. It would appear that every female that he came in contact with, there was some allegations made against him.
Mr. Albertiki's conduct had caused all sorts of concern to the police for a number of years. I don't think Eddie Albertiki can ever claim to be a man of good character.
I went on an end-of-season rounders party to Blackpool to go to Funny Girls. I had a drink in the pub and then a couple of drinks on the coach. Couldn't get in because the bouncer thought I was drunk. So I went across the road for a coffee to sober me up. I remember sitting down and drinking my coffee. I just have images of spinning on a chair and the world spinning. There must have been something in my drink because I don't remember anything. It's clear as day. I remember my phone ringing and I opened my eyes and I wasn't at home. Where am I? Why have I got no clothes on? I sat bolt upright and quickly got as dressed as quick as I could, stumbled down some stairs, I shot across the road. As I ran straight out the road, someone else shouted at me from the back, come back, come back. And I turned around to a guy, an Asian guy, with a load of money in his hand. The bouncer just said, come in, come in, come in now. And the bouncer looked after me and he phoned the police. And the police came and said I'd been assaulted. I was told that I had had sex and a man who turned out to be Albertiki had sex with me, basically, while I was unconscious.
The associate and the subject are out of the premises and are towards the subject vehicle. The associates were in blue jeans, a 3/4 length black mac over a beige top. The subject is now in and into the subject vehicle. Stand by, stand by, stand by.
Can you give me your full name and your normal address, please?
My name is Mohammed Reza Raveshi, and my address is Hornby Road, Black.
I interviewed Raveshi. He was a sharp operator, very cunning, sly person, not a particularly likeable chap. He made no admissions regarding Charlene Downs.
This is Hornby Road. This is where I used to live. The police think the murder happened here. This is the bedsit door for Ayad, yeah? And Ayad was living in this room. They say everything happened in my bedroom.
She was killed in your bedroom?
That's what they say. They say that she was sexually abused here, and she was murdered here, and she was dismembered here.
These are photographs taken of the inside of Mohammed Raveshi's house on Hornby Road. This was the first place that the police wanted to check forensically to see if there was actually any evidence of Charlene ever going into the house.
There was a very deep forensic search made of that room and that house.
They ripped everything apart and they removed the carpet, and there was all furniture, they cut into furnitures, into checking Ayad's bed and a wardrobe, everything that you can imagine.
I do remember Cassidy telling us about black bin bags on Ravesh's bed, a lot of blood, and that they were cleaning the room.
They find blood?
What blood they found was, belonged to one of my foster son's girlfriend.
I can remember one of the forensic scientists saying that for a house of its age, it was rather unusual that it was rather clean, and they weren't finding the debris or the residue that they would normally be found.
A lot of the floorboards had since been replaced, they were new. A lot of the skirting boards around the side, a lot of modification had been made to the inside of the house. As a police officer, as a detective on the inquiry, it was a red flag. It was like the scene had been completely cleaned up before the police had any opportunity to get in there.
I am very, very good doing construction work. I have about 16 or 17 properties.
Veshi is really convincing. He's very believable. He's very articulate. And he's really, really resourceful.
I do all my work myself. And I've done that for many years. So when you've done all this many times, you know exactly what you do. So that's why I'm ripping everything out.
Charlene went missing in 2003. She kissed her mum goodbye saying that she was going to the arcades, and then she vanished without a trace. Now, she had a chaotic lifestyle. She was one of a number of girls who used to congregate near to takeaway shops and have sex with some of the men who worked there.
Them stairs there. I don't even want to be down there. State of it. Smoking drugs down here. Blackpool for you, innit? I felt sick when I walked down. I feel sick now. Why don't you love me? We did, Charlene, we did. You should sit on this exact step. That's how we knew where to sit. She used to go in that door and come back out with a fag from her.
She obviously meant a lot to you.
More than a lot, mate. She's my soulmate. If she were around now, we've been married with kids. When the alcohol and the fags started getting given, I had to make a decision, and I had to make a decision for me and her. And I asked her to come with me, and she said no, so I went home and never saw her again.
When a day go by that I don't think of her, you know, and wish she was with me. But that's the blouse she wore. It's grubby, but there's no way I can wash it because that's like washing up part of her away, although it's not. It would be to me, and that I can't do. I can't do. Still can feel her near me. I can still smell her and still feel her near me. I just can't bring myself to wash them. Just can't understand why she went missing, what happened, why anyone would want to do anything to her, why anybody would want her hurt.
Upon conclusion of the covert audio surveillance, there were maybe 52 digital tapes that captured conversations of both Albertiki and Raveshi over a 4-week period of time. I was able to start listening to those covert recordings and then to start making basic transcripts of what the content was. What is very interesting is the first few tapes. Clearly, they were shocked and worried and panicking, and the first thing that they start to talk about is the murder inquiry.
You look worried, you know. Believe me, don't worry. There's nothing they, you know, they can find.
Raveshi, she died here. There's a sigh. And Raveshi asked the question, why'd you kill her here? Why you did her?
This was terrible.
The last one, the last big one, and then it got cut off to the 45 degree.
Eddie talking about land, talking about a land that has bones on it, and that one of these days somebody is going to find a bone on the land.
Yesterday morning, I thought maybe something is on. I'll go and check the photo again.
The swinging emotions of Raveshi, from being very, very confident to him almost having a breakdown where the pressure was just too much for him. And then Raveshi says, I'm so worried and you were the one who fucking killed her. It really was at that point that, you know, there was no doubt in my mind that we had the right two people. He had Albertiki, murdered Charlene, and Mohammed Raveshi assisted in her disposal.
You are fucking Charlene. Yeah, he's a fucking crazy.
Blackpool have today charged Eddie Ayad Albertiki and Mohammed Raveshi with the murder of the missing teenager Charlene Downs.
There's absolutely no doubt that the police thought that they had their men. I wasn't too sure.
Is there anything unique about the Raveshi case? Is there anything that stood out?
Well, I think what really stood out was the evidence of Detective Sergeant Besant.
So I'm listening, I said, what the hell she's talking about? I've never said anything like that. Where is it all coming from?
When we heard those recordings, we realized that the evidence was wholly false. Her transcriptions were made to fit the case